Um, I think in our last episode, you had promised to introduce our podcast for the next one. So here's my notes.
All right,
superstar.
Welcome to At Your Expense podcast. My name is Trevor, and
I'm Kat.
you can listen to this on Apple or Google Podcasts or whatever you listen to podcasts on. Spotify. We put them on YouTube, but we don't have like video to them yet. It's just the episode like picture. At some point, we might do some video stuff. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how people feel. If anybody really wants that, then we're open to it. But right now, we haven't wanted to put our faces out there yet.
In other words, it's a lot more work to edit a video, which we are happy to do if anyone cares.
Yeah,
but if not, I mean, we're already struggling.
It's a lot to edit the video as well. That's just not adding a whole nother element to it. For now, it's not needed. I don't think.
That also means I have to put pants on when we record these episodes, and I don't know if I'm personally willing to.
Why would we do a video that's like a full body video? If we did a video, it'd show your face.
I think you need to have the people vote on what they want to see.
We should be standing up and doing it
the whole time.
Yeah.
At podiums.
Yeah, we should do the podcast.
Podiums.
We should have two podiums facing each other.
We agree. Yes, we agree.
So yeah, you can check out our link tree with all the different ways to listen to the podcast or interact with us. We do have a Twitter, at your expense _. Our Instagram is just at your expense pod. Our YouTube is at your expense podcast. But yeah, submit questions to us, ask us shit.
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by the you know the thing.
So today we are going to talk about something very sacred and very important, and that is democracy. I don't know if many of y'all have heard about that. It's something we definitely cherish as Americans. They're gonna make it to where everyone can vote, and if they do that, this country's going to hell. You can guarantee it.
Because as we'll hear later, famously, not everyone should be voting in this country. It's asinine. What are you talking about?
Yeah. Apparently, there's a good reason why plenty of people should have lots of barriers to them exercising their rights as citizens. But then even more importantly, the people who do apparently care about everyone being able to vote also seem to care about a lot of other sneaky shit that they want to put in this bill that is definitely not very democratic. So we'll get into all that.
So this is going to be a very dramatic episode with lots of twists and turns and lots of just what the fuck moments. We are talking today partly about HR-1 for the People Act, and this is something you may or may not have heard of, going around for a hot minute. I'm going to read you the government summary, and I say that government summary so that while we're reading here together, the point of view this is coming from, and then we're going to dive deep, okay? So, according to Congress, this bill addresses voter access, election integrity and security, campaign finance, and ethics for the three branches of government. Specifically, the bill expands voter registration, for example, automatic and same-day registration, and voting access, like vote by mail and early voting. It also limits removing voters from voter rolls. The bill requires states to establish independent redistricting commissions to carry out congressional redistricting. We'll get into that later too. Additionally, the bill sets forth provisions related to election security, including sharing intelligence information with state election officials. That's a little weird. Supporting states in securing their election systems, developing a national strategy to protect U.S. democratic institutions. This is getting kind of weirder as we go. Establishing in the legislative branch the National Commission to protect United States democratic institutions. That's all capitalized, by the way, so this is sounding even weirder. And other provisions to improve the cybersecurity of election systems. Further, the bill addresses campaign finance, including by expanding the prohibition on campaign spending by foreign nationals, requiring additional disclosure of campaign-related fundraising and spending, requiring additional disclaimers regarding certain political advertising, and establishing an alternative campaign funding system for certain federal offices. This bill addresses ethics in all three branches of government, including by requiring a code of conduct for Supreme Court justices, prohibiting members of the House from serving on the board of a for-profit entity, and establishing additional conflict of interest and ethics provisions for federal employees in the White House. Lastly, the bill requires the president, the vice president, and certain candidates for those offices to disclose 10 years of tax returns.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's, hey, you know what? Sounds like democracy. Sounds ethical. I heard ethics in there a lot.
A lot, right?
Yeah. So it sounds real ethical. It sounds... I don't think that nothing bad could come out of this, basically.
Okay, so this is touted as... This is what's been kind of thrown around a lot in support of this bill, this paragraph I'm about to read you. This is an act to expand Americans' access to the ballot box, reduce the influence of big money in politics.
Now, those sound really good.
Okay. Strengthen ethics rules for public servants.
Okay.
And implement other anti-corruption measures for the purpose of fortifying our democracy and for other purposes.
Okay, so they're gonna make sure that like we have like, you know, that our this applies like primaries as well.
I don't know.
And that like we're gonna make sure the process is just like, you know, more accountable to people and not, you know, that people. I guess, did I hear something? Like, there's a lot of things in there about, you know, reducing the role of like big money in elections, which is, you know, that's great. That sounds like something we've desperately fucking need. Really, you know, we need to basically get money out of politics, you know, completely in general. But like, this seems like a step there, right?
Seems like it, doesn't it? Let me turn it all around for you.
Oh,
so
okay.
We will include a link for this, gp.org/HR1. This is the Green Party's campaign to stop the HR-1 poison pills that suppress voter choice. Now, I'm going to read you a bunch of text again, but in summary, they're saying, look, there are some good things in this bill. There's a whole lot of bad things, though, too. And that's what we usually see in Congress, right? Okay, so let me read this to you so that you understand the whole other side of the story, and then we'll get into it. So... stop the HR-1 poison pills that suppress voter choice. Yeah, Trev?
Yeah, because I mean, like, I guess famously, like with any kind of reforms that come about, you know, in elections, there's also the kinds of reforms that make it to where it's, you know, way more difficult for anyone outside of the two major parties to have any kind of a shot. So you've got multiple angles here. And remember, we're working with Democrats and Republicans and now third parties, and they all have their piece to say about this, right? And so Republicans are, of course, suppress voter choice across the board. Yeah,
that's how they win.
They're like, hey, people shouldn't vote.
They just shouldn't do it. We just need to not do that. And Democrats are like, well, hey, let's increase voter access, right? Because the majority of people are more likely to lean towards Democrat than Republican, right?
Yeah, because
there are a majority of people who aren't voting or who are stopped from voting.
Unless there's another option.
Oh, well, looky there. Okay, so now...
so for the sake of democracy, we just have to make sure that those people can only vote Democrat.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
So let's get into it.
Well, I mean, that is, you know, democracy, Democrat. It's in their name, you know what I mean? So it really does. It does seem a lot like this is just...
They couldn't be for anything else. It's just not possible.
This seems perfect to me. I mean, I always thought, you know, democracy is when Democrats win and nothing else.
Obviously, yeah.
Right?
That's why they're called that.
Isn't that right?
All right. So from the Green Party, this is sign our petition to tell lawmakers that covertly repressing opposition parties is undemocratic and not what Americans want or need. Okay. So they are saying HR-1, also known as the For the People Act, is sold as a way to get money out of politics and to protect voters. But it contains several poison pills for democracy and opposition parties like the Green Party. Most alarmingly, HR-1 quintuples the amount of money Green presidential campaigns will be required to raise to qualify for federal matching funds, from $5,000 in each of the 20 states to $25,000 per state. Why? What is the reason?
Because democracy. Because if you really want to protect democracy, you have to make sure that we, maintain our duopoly in this country, where there are two major parties that represent the same corporate interests,
and you don't get a choice.
That absolutely have the exact, same agenda in a lot of ways, and you can vote for one of them. And that's democracy. Yeah,
because what else would American democracy be if you could choose something that was different from the status quo?
Yeah, no. Ridiculous. Again, democracy is being able to vote for Democrats and making sure they win at the expense of, any other opposition party that wants to challenge them.
And let's be clear, that's just because Democrats are basically Republicans. In the grand scheme of things.
Well, no. See, Republicans don't even want you to vote, and then Democrats want you to only be able to vote for them. So it's very different. You don't understand.
I don't get it. You're right. So they go on to say the Green Party stands opposed to the anti-democracy poison pills in HR-1, a package that is sold as a voting rights bill, but would actually undermine everyone's right to organize electorally against the parties of war and Wall Street. In a recent Gallup poll, a record 62% of U.S. voters said we need a new major party.
Huh. Would you look at
Weird.
that?
62% of Americans.
That's a lot of people.
Want a whole new party.
They're like, you know what? Neither of these actually represent me.
Crazy. I still don't have the basic things that I need in my day-to-day life. Cool.
And, I guess if this really just speaks to the Democrats, I guess, position on a lot of things, and like how instead of trying to appeal to people in any meaningful way and being like, well, third parties aren't going to compete with us anyways because we're actually going to,
do the things that you want.
Yeah, we're going to advocate for policies that meet the material needs of our constituents, and then that's how we win.
I think that's a really good point, actually, that I haven't fully thought about until you just said that. If they could just provide a little bit of what third parties are offering, they wouldn't be afraid. They wouldn't have to sink to these measures of increasing campaign amounts in order to just even be on the ballot in the first place. There's obviously a reason why they're afraid and why they are suppressing actively these other parties, because they know that they're not going to do things for the people that the people need and want.
Yeah, and they know that the ideas of these third parties are popular, and that most people don't really identify with these two parties anymore because they don't represent them. And then they see this, and instead of instead of actually adopting some of those policies, taking more populist positions on issues that would actually appeal to disaffected voters, then they would actually have a chance to pull some people over who would otherwise vote for a third party, and then be like, oh no, we'll make concessions that a third party, a third party wants these things. Okay, we'll put some of these things on our platform. But that's not how they're going to do it, because they know that they can't actually do any of those things. They can't actually adopt any of those policy positions. So instead, we're just going to limit your ability to vote for anyone else.
Yep.
So
no one else is allowed to run now.
You have to vote for us because
there's no other choice.
Because we're not Republicans, and there's nothing else to do. So
you don't want to be racist, do you?
If they can make sure that the Green Party is not on the ballot in a lot of states, that's good for them.
And I want to reiterate that this is for any other parties, not just Green Party. Yeah. They are obviously the ones that are going to be talking about themselves in this petition, but these rules go for any opposition party. So anything that's not Republican or Democrat.
So yeah, that goes for the fucking Libertarian Party. As much as I don't want them to be on the ballot anywhere, they should be.
They should be. If people wanted that, then that's what the people want.
Or the birthday party.
Can I have a rundown quickly
Kanye.
of the? Oh, yeah, that's
Kanye
right.
West,
okay, now I remember.
So yeah, like
Okay.
like if they're just gonna make it harder for any kind of
anyone who's not Republican or Democrat, like we've said several times, that's it. Anyone else, anyone. Okay. In addition to quintupling the money presidential candidates must raise to access presidential primary public matching funds, like we just talked about, other poison pills in HR-1 would abolish the general election campaign block grants that parties can access by winning at least 5% of the vote in the previous presidential election. HR-1 would eliminate this provision that was created to give a fair shot to alternative parties that demonstrate significant public support.
Okay. So
yeah, because they say here, replace the general election block grants where each qualified candidate receives a set lump sum of public funding for campaign expenses with matching funds through election day. So they're not going to do that anymore. They say this is a huge step backwards for public campaign finance reform, using the above mentioned criteria designed to squeeze out alternative parties and independent candidates. This is going to eliminate the limits on donations and expenditures candidates can receive and make. What kind of campaign finance reform is that?
Yeah.
There's no longer, according to this bill, a limit on how much money you can donate to a candidate or the expenditures that they can count as a candidate on their campaign.
So you're saying during the general, they're removing some of the barriers for people to be able to donate. So how is that getting money out of politics? How is that ethics? Where's the ethics there? I don't see that.
This will also inflate the amount of money national party committees can give to candidates from $5,000 to $100 million. An astonishing increase, I don't even know how to say this number, 1.9999900%, that would give party bosses virtually unlimited power to flood elections with big money. But remember, this is getting money out of politics.
So I don't understand. How is this bill being spun to where it's addressing the issue of money in campaigns?
It literally says on the Congress website, our government website, that this is getting money out of politics. And they have just increased the amount that you can give candidates from $5,000 to $100 million.
You said 5,000?
Yeah, 5,000
to 100
million. What the fuck kind of a jump is that? What is going on?
This is on individual contributions?
Inflate the amount of money national party committees can give to candidates.
Okay. So
gives party bosses.
Is that the same as like for like PACs, for like political action committees?
I don't know. We'd have to open the bill, which is fucking huge.
So okay. So currently there are limits to what people can give for individual contributions. Do they think that like making that?
Well, see,
they making they're making individual contributions like
this doesn't say individual. It says the amount of money national party committees can give to candidates.
Okay, so this is okay.
Yeah,
this is from the party committees. This is okay. So this is from the party committees giving to the candidates.
But the one that we read before that is eliminate the limits on donations and expenditures candidates can receive and make, and it doesn't specify if that's individual, PAC, what.
Okay. Yeah. So. Yeah, it definitely doesn't sound like they're making it harder to give a ton of money to one candidate.
No, it doesn't.
But it does sound like they're making it way harder for
people who don't accept corporate money.
Yes.
To campaign.
Yeah, it's going to be bad for any campaign that is trying to be run with just individual contributions from their supporters and not from fucking donations from large PACs or, like they're saying, party committees, which party committees, you know, they raise so much money that they can pour into these local elections, you know, for Democrats. And like these big Democrat, like the committee or whatever, the DCCC or whatever, that has all this money they give to candidates, and they always remember they give this money to candidates that are usually more centrist, more like mainstream Dem. Like they usually give this money. Like if there was someone trying to primary a Democrat, they would give that money to the incumbent. Like always, a party committee would try to keep the incumbent in there.
But it's bullshit, and I'm going to read you the end of this petition, and hopefully you'll want to sign it. And I'll give you the link to that in a second. So they say HR-1 contains some good provisions to combat voter suppression and enact incremental electoral reforms in the right direction. But democracy depends as much on the right to run for office in elections as the right to vote in elections. As the infamous Boss tweet said, you can vote for anyone you like as long as I get to pick the candidates.
Yep.
The anti-democracy poison pills must be removed from HR-1 before it can be passed. Instead of trying to fool American voters and eliminating alternative party choices, the Green Party calls for real reforms to democratize elections, such as the Fair Representation Act, introduced in 2018 and 19, which would enact ranked choice voting in multi-member districts for congressional elections, giving voters more power, more choice. Individual state governments should enact RCV for their elections, including the presidential election, and fully public campaign finance for every federal, state, and local office through the Clean Money, Clean Elections model now used in Arizona and Maine. I didn't know that, actually. That's kind of cool. So then they end with going to gp.org/HR1 to sign the petition, Stop the HR1 Poison Pills That Suppress Voter Choice. And it simply says, I stand with the Green Party of the U.S. in rejecting the anti-democracy poison pills in HR1, which claims to improve access to voting, but would actually undermine our right to build independent grassroots parties and campaigns.
Yeah. It improves access to voting for the two major parties.
By a lot.
It makes it way easier.
It's essentially eliminating any other party, essentially.
To vote, yeah.
Yeah.
It makes it way easier for them to just like fucking totally squash any kind of opposition party that would pose any threat to them at all. Which I guess, you know, in some like sick fucking way, to these people, that actually is like preserving democracy. You know what I mean? Like they're in their mind, they're like, well, democracy is when the people get to choose between the two parties, and they choose the one of the two parties that they like more, which is, you know, which would be Democrats if all these. If it wasn't for all these meddling third parties over here trying to pull them away, like, you know what I mean? In their mind, they're like, oh, actually, it's anti-democratic that there's other parties that people can vote for. It's like,
are you saying then that there are people who truly believe that like Democrats and Republicans are the only viable choices, and they just can't imagine any other kind of party or method of doing things? Like they truly do believe like this is what's best for like our country, and because is preserving only the choice between two things, like that is the way it always has been and always should be.
I mean, yeah, I feel like they actually believe in a system which basically has two major parties that, you know, they can choose between, but like they think that because nothing else would be viable, it's more democratic to make sure that people aren't like, I guess, like quote unquote wasting their vote, which is just so fucking stupid,
ridiculous.
And it's like you just said, like 62% of people want a new major party. Like most people don't identify, and I feel like that's part of this too. So like they passed this as something that's gonna actually like strengthen like democracy and, you know, and remove some of the barriers to voting. But then also they have to do this because I think they see this coming, that people are completely done voting for these two parties, which I think people are realizing more and more are the same and absolutely do nothing for them. So yeah, I think they feel threatened, and I feel like they think that this is probably a good time to sneak something in there that makes it even harder because it's not like it's been easy before. It's already really fucking hard for a third party to have any kind of traction, to get any kind of representation on the ballot, or, you know, especially in the media at debates. Like fuck no, they never let them up there. They never actually highlight a third party or like give any kind of attention to them that would actually allow people to think that it's feasible to vote for them, or even like let people know that these things exist, right? Because not everyone is as plugged in as us, and there's people out there who don't know that there's another party, whatever that party may be, that's not Democrat or Republican, that is offering these things for them that they could actually use and would actually vote for. And so it's been really important to try and get that 5% of the vote so that a third party can get on the debate stage, just to increase awareness and just to let people know something like that exists. And they have made that just so much even harder now. That Gallup poll that we are talking about, where it says 62% of Americans want a new major party, the same poll also says that now more Americans identify as independent than Republican or Democrat combined. Yeah, so they are very threatened by that fact. They know that people are growing completely disaffected from both parties. They see, people have seen the Democrats fail them over and over and over again while they've been in power. And, Republican voters, I'm sure, have to at some point feel the same way, and they do. That's why they elected Trump. They do feel the same way. They do feel also like their party doesn't represent them, and so I don't know. I feel like right now, and Republicans are probably feeling it too, because they have all of these, Trump voters, these people who probably, hadn't voted in a long time or don't really give a shit about Republicans and only voted for them for like cultural reasons. Mm-hmm. And all of those people and all these other people who identify as independents, who don't think the two parties represent them, who actually would vote for a third party if it seemed like a viable option, if they were at the debates, if they saw coverage of them in the media.
And they thought it was actually possible, then they would do it. And if they weren't hounded constantly by Democrats saying, well, you're going to waste your vote, you're going to help the Republicans win if you vote for what you actually want. Oh my God. And I mean, I know that there's pushback even on the left for this argument sometimes, but that is just so not getting us anywhere.
Yeah. I mean, how many times can we keep voting for the Democrats and let them do nothing and then just be happy that they're there and not Republicans?
How many cycles do we have to do the same thing over and over again?
Also, every time we give them our votes and they do the same thing, the Republicans move further right. And the Democrats just stay where they are, or they follow them, basically. And then it's like, because the Republicans keep getting worse and worse, the Democrats have to do less and less to be not the Republicans. Yeah. And over time, it's gotten to the point where, now we have someone who's president who was elected 2 administrations ago to serve as vice president precisely because he was a very fucking moderate, basically Republican Democrat. And that's why he was vice president to begin with, is because Obama was appealing to,
those conservatives that would
centrist,
come over.
Moderate Republicans who were like, oh, well, Biden, he works with segregationists. He
basically votes Republican. Look at his voting record. It's Republican as fuck.
And they're just like, okay, well, this guy. And then now, he's supposed to be the most progressive president since FDR.
That is fucking crazy.
But that's how far right everything has moved, because we never actually get to challenge them from the outside. And if we don't challenge them from the outside, they can do whatever they want, and they can pretend they have the moral high ground just because they're just because they're not Trump.
Right.
Which is like,
such a low standard.
Yeah. Now after Trump, the bar's lowered so much, it's like, we're just not Trump. And it's like, okay, cool.
Well, good. I'm so glad. We've at least avoided that catastrophe, right? Oh, well, you know what? This gives me a little bit of hope then, actually. Like you were saying, they feel so threatened that they have to sink to these measures to really try to suppress any other party. So that tells me that we are doing something a little bit right.
Yeah, but
now will anything come out of it? We'll see. But
does it matter?
We have to hold on to something, and I'm going to do that.
If they really make it like what you're saying, like 25,000 instead of 5,000, like I don't know if that's feasible at all for even the Green Party to do. Like I don't know. This might really prevent them from getting on the ballot anywhere. Important.
This could actually stop for the time being until something else is done. I mean, I know that we're always going to find another way, but. So you had looked at the status. I think you said this passed the House a while back.
Yeah, it passed the House on March 3rd, and since then it's went through several different committees, making its way to the Senate to be voted on in the Senate. So the next step really is for them to have a Senate vote on it, and I don't know when that's going to be, but people really need to be making noise about this in some kind of way that's gonna actually show people what is really written here in this bill that's actually going to be very bad for democracy. And it's weird because I see like quote unquote progressives in the Democratic Party pushing this bill.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Like they have no fucking idea that this is going to make it impossible for a third party to oppose the Democrats. Like.
Okay, so I think, was it Cori Bush? I think someone is saying, hey, as part of this bill, I want to get in there that we can lower the voting age to 16, I think it was. Okay. Which is a whole different argument that may not even be a bad thing, whatever. But the point is that she is endorsing this bill by doing that, right? So that tells me, like, the progressives that we have now in office, like you were saying, aren't really progressive. They're not, they know what's in this bill, and they don't care. They're fine with limiting your choices to Democrats or the Republicans.
I mean, I hope they know what's in it, or they just have staff that have read it and they told them, "Oh, this is a good bill. It's like it's good for
I refuse to believe
it makes
they
it
don't
to
know
where
what's going on.
more people can vote or whatever." And they're like, "Oh, okay."
There are campaigns out there against this bill, and y'all, when you sign that petition that we're linking to, it's not just a petition; it's emailing the representatives. So you're telling people in Congress this is bullshit. That's more important than just signing a petition.
Well, it's like Cory. I like Cory Bush like a lot.
I
was so happy when Cory Bush
ways.
was elected. Like I was like, oh, she's awesome. Like Cory Bush, for a lot of reasons, is someone that I still do have faith in and kind of support, even though she is in the Democratic Party. But I mean, like it's really like disheartening to see like them not bring up any of the glaring issues with this bill and just say, okay, well, we want to get our own things in it, but otherwise we'll pass it. Like, what? Why would you pass it unless they know too that to make sure that Democrats keep getting elected, this is what they have to do.
Yeah, and it's just really sad that there's a lot of good voting stuff in here that does decrease barriers for actually voting, like physically voting, but then they have to just completely ruin it by putting all this voter suppression stuff in there. I mean,
so there is some pretty good stuff though in there, that like disempowering third parties is only one aspect of the bill, but there are some things in it that are good.
Yeah, I was looking up the Cory Bush thing just to make sure that we were saying the right person who was proposing that. And I saw a People's Party response to HR-1 that I hadn't seen before. I'm going to read that really quick. It's just part of it. HR-1 outlines changes that will make it more difficult to build and grow political parties outside of the corporate duopoly in the U.S. This bill contains many items.
Slow down.
Oh, really? I just read really fast. Okay. This bill contains many items that will harm the ability of independent parties to form and flourish. If passed into law, HR-1 would increase the fundraising requirements for a party to qualify for public matching funds from $5,000 to $25,000 in 20 states, lock in a two-party plus independent structure for state redistricting. This would ultimately exclude small and new parties from participating on redistricting boards. We're going to talk about that in a second. It would do away with general election grants that have historically been accessed when a party wins 5% or more of the vote in the previous presidential election. Okay, so that makes that part a little more clear. And most shockingly, HR-1 would increase the amount of money a national party committee can give a presidential candidate from $5,000 to $100 million, representing a dangerous centralization of power in the corporate captured national committees of the Democratic and Republican parties.
Yeah. Basically making it to where it's like it's almost unlimited how much these party committees can give to candidates, which is insane because it's like if a party can give that much to a candidate, then what the fuck is anybody outside of those two parties? Those candidates can't raise nearly as much or compete with them in any meaningful way. So they're basically just making it to where like third party candidates will have nowhere near the resources and access that these other the candidates of the two major parties do.
Look, they're basically saying, we know that you might probably win if you're allowed to run. We're just going to shut that down right away from the get-go. That's it. That's all this is.
Or that you're going to threaten our chances to win if you're allowed to run, which, yeah.
Well, that's the point, yeah.
So, what was the 5% thing?
The 5%?
You said it makes it more clear on this?
Oh, yeah. Let me go back. So, my understanding is when you win 5% or more of the vote in the previous presidential election, you get a general election grant that allows you to have some money to run your campaign, which is important to these parties that don't take corporate money, right?
Yeah.
So they're taking that away.
Oh, okay, cool.
So fuck you.
Or they're just taking it away.
They're taking it away.
They're not changing the requirements.
They're taking it away. Do away with.
Oh my.
Why? Just tell me, like what even would be a justification for saying, hey, historically we've been giving you like a little bit of support so that in favor of democracy you've got a fair chance at going right. What is the justification for just taking it away? There isn't one.
You're threatening the chances of the two major parties, basically.
Yeah. So the really fun part of this is I went and found some dissenting articles from usually Republicans that are fighting back on the...
Real quick. Okay. Before you get into that, let's go over some of the good things that are in it.
Okay. So I pulled up the People's Party response again, and they have a good little summary of what's good about this bill. That's what you asked for, right? We can confidently say that this bill includes multiple provisions that are positive for the average voter. Some of these provisions include new rules making it easier to register to vote, including automatic voter registration and same-day registration, empowering small dollar donors, stopping the practice of voter rolls purging, requiring states to allow people with felony convictions to vote. I didn't know that. That's pretty cool.
That's really
I
good.
like that.
I also really like the automatic voter registration thing. That's great. That should happen. Yeah.
Absolutely. Allowing all eligible voters to cast their vote by mail for any reason, reducing the power of super PACs. That one I'm confused on.
So I'm guessing that because they're increasing so much the ability for party committees to give to candidates, they're also going to decrease somewhat the role of super PACs to give to candidates. But they can just just do the same thing with these party committees that have been done before with super PACs. Basically, like that's how they're going to start funneling way more money to candidates through these party committees instead of the corporate super PACs. But also, does that change anything? Not really.
Okay, I think this is what Green Party was talking about. It says HR-1 vastly increases the role and influence of big donors and big private money because wealthy donors can effectively circumvent the candidate contribution limit by giving to the party committees directly and have them funnel the money forward to the candidate, effectively raising the amount big donors can contribute to a candidate.
There you go.
Wow, Trevor, you nailed it.
Yeah, that's basically it.
Look at all them degrees at work.
They're like, okay, well, the PACs. Oh, well, people have this negative perception of super PACs because of all the bullshit that's gone on and all the previous elections. So, okay, we're going to take away power from the PACs. And then now, if you're a wealthy donor who wants to make sure that your candidate of either major party wins, you just give directly to their party committee because that's way more democratic to just funnel money that way. It's like, all they're changing is the method of which they're funneling money to candidates.
Okay, there's more about the Green Party thing I wasn't going to read, but now I want to because I've been inspired, and this is very related, and I love this. HR-1 eliminates instead of strengthens full general election public financing. So the current public financing system for presidential elections was established in 1974 in response to the financial corruption of the 1972 Richard Nixon presidential re-election campaign. It provides for a 1-to-1 public matching fund for qualified small donations in the primaries. A candidate that opts into this system can then receive a public grant for the general. In exchange, they agree not to accept any private donations nor spend more than the grant. In this way, the general election campaign of presidential candidates would be publicly funded and only publicly funded. HR-1 abandons that commitment and replaces it with a system that allows general election candidates to accept unlimited private donations together with public funds. Third-party organizers take issue with the new campaign funding schemes contained in this legislation, which would expand public funding for campaigns but also increase the threshold to qualify. In short, HR-1 is a scam to add public money to all the private money corporate major party incumbents can raise while making it hard for challengers, whether inside a major party or in a third party, to even qualify for public funding.
Yep. Yeah, and like I said, and I like that they put that disclaimer,
Good.
Even inside a major party.
Good.
Even for these fucking and that's what really perplexes me about these Democrats who beat incumbents to get in the party. The ones who are progressive and who actually had to oust an incumbent to get in there, and they were not supported by the party during their campaigns. And now this bill is going to make it to where that's even less likely to happen, and there's going to be even more support for incumbents against anybody trying to run against them. So, great.
Voila.
So yeah, no more primarying Democrats, guys. Hey, you know what? Maybe if people can't fucking primary Democrats to try to get in the Democratic Party, they'll have to start going with a different party. So
Wild.
Yeah. Maybe it seems like they don't want y'all in there, huh? Yeah.
Guys, can you believe that?
Yeah.
Kind of mean. To finish up what People's Party was saying about the good things of this bill, it would allow at least 2 weeks for early voting. Oh, okay. Well, that was the last one. They say each of these provisions together or as standalone actions are conducive to democracy, many of which impact the voter directly. However, HR-1 also details changes that further erode the strength and integrity of our ailing democracy.
Okay, so yeah.
So there's some good stuff.
So the good stuff,
not enough to outweigh the bad stuff.
The good stuff is basically like, it's going to be easier for more people to register, for more people to vote.
But you only have two choices.
But it's and
they're the same fucking thing.
I think it makes it easier to vote all around because it limits barriers to being able to register, to being able to vote. And also, it eliminates all these other choices that get in the way. So really,
we're making it easier for you.
We're making it easy. You only have two. Look, you got two. You got A or B. You got that's simple. They're simplifying it for everyone. I think that makes it a lot easier because some people, they get in there and it just it discourages a lot of people from voting.
Having more than two choices, right?
Yeah. Like I think it's like, people would do a lot better on multiple choice tests if there was only an A and a B selection. And
you can't get it wrong because they're the same thing, so you're getting 100% anyway.
Oh, yeah, cool. So, yeah.
This is for you guys.
Yeah, so there are some good things in there, which you mentioned, and it's just hilarious because, like, okay, we're hearing from the third parties as to what they are opposing about it, which are, very legitimate concerns about...
Absolutely crucial, whether they can exist or not, basically.
Yeah. And then there's the other side of it, which is the fucking Republicans who hate the few good things that were in the bill. So the few good things we just talked about, that's what the Republicans are going to focus on, and they're going to be pissed about that. So...
yeah. So let's talk about the Heritage Foundation.
Okay, yes. Let's talk about the Heritage Foundation.
This is a favorite of Trevor.
But also, let's have a whole fucking episode about the Heritage Foundation.
Okay, I would like that.
Or just on think tanks in general.
Okay. I'm going to make that note right now.
But yeah, okay. The fucking Heritage Foundation. All right. All right, let's go. What do they got for me?
Okay, hold on. I'm making our note. Okay.
Hey, the Heritage Foundation's good. They wrote Obamacare.
Okay, listen. Let's start. Oh my God. Let's start at the beginning. The Heritage Foundation is an American conservative think tank based in Washington, D.C., primarily geared towards public policy. The foundation took a leading role in the conservative movement during the presidency of Ronald Reagan, whose policies were taken from Heritage's policy study mandate for leadership. Okay, so we've got Hans van Spakovsky of the Heritage Foundation complaining about HR-1, saying, people often complain about gerrymandering by state legislatures when they draw the political lines after every decennial census. But legislatures at least are accountable to the voters who can just vote them out of office if the voters are not satisfied with the job legislators do.
Yeah. It's so easy to do so.
Yeah. Hey, if you're not satisfied with what your legislator is doing, just vote them out.
Mm-hmm.
Easy peasy. Trevor, maybe you can give us an explanation of gerrymandering because we're about to talk about that for a second.
So I think you mentioned something about earlier. Were they trying to undo some of the damage done by gerrymandering in this bill?
I saw
do they
independent
address
districting.
Yeah, are they doing redistricting? Because that sounds like they're trying to address some of the problems with gerrymandering. But yeah, gerrymandering is basically drawing, legislators making maps of where districts are or what constituents are in what district, just kind of arbitrarily or really based on different demographic choices of we want all of these kind of communities to be in this district, so there's a very good chance that they will vote for this candidate, kind of thing. So
yes. So HR-1 requires states to establish independent redistricting commissions to carry out congressional redistricting. Okay. And this guy from the Heritage Foundation is pissed because he's saying anyone with a bias not being allowed to draw lines. A person chosen to draw lines is representative of the area to be drawn is ridiculous. That's what he says. And it's just incredible how comfortable these people are with being just outwardly discriminatory.
Yeah. He's like, I don't think people who are from those areas should be able to decide what defines the district in that area.
Yeah, right. So they basically want to make it where people without bias are drawing these lines and they have to be from the place where they're drawing the lines to, is what I'm gathering. Yeah. And this guy from Heritage Foundation is like, why would you ever do that? That's ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously Republicans are, it's not like both parties do it. Both major Democrats do it as well. But I mean, Republicans famously do some fucking wild gerrymandering.
It's insane. If y'all, I wish we could include like a picture somehow.
Yeah, we probably can. I remember like my friend was telling me, he was like, yeah, I'm in like Dan Crenshaw's district. Like, look at the line drawn. Like, just try to just fucking see this. Like, yeah, pull it up. It's crazy looking. But yeah.
Is it this one or this one?
It's that first one.
It's this one. Okay, so this is. Oh my God. Okay, so anyone from Houston will be a little familiar. You're going from like 610 South all the way to Katy up to basically Tomball, and you skip all of like North Houston.
Yeah.
And you go to Humble and Kingwood.
And again, he's basically getting affluent white suburbs.
Right. So if you're looking at this, is where the rich white people live, and they're skipping all the people of color.
Exactly. So there's like a whole chunk carved out that's not part of the district, and that is of all the fucking
Fifth Ward.
Yeah, all the communities in Houston that wouldn't fucking vote for Dan Crenshaw is the point.
And so he's like, look, I know you wouldn't vote for me. I'm going to make it where you don't even have a choice.
Or it's like, he didn't draw the fucking district map, but it's like that was the point of making it that, is that like, yeah, this district, if we draw the district like this, they'll always vote Republican. It's like, yeah.
Easy win.
Okay.
I found an article called Cruz slams HR-1 as a shameless power grab meant to keep Democrats in power for 100 years.
Oh, yeah. Tell me, Ted Cruz.
He says there's automatic registration of anybody if you get a driver's license, if you get a welfare payment, if you get an unemployment payment, if you attend a public university.
Yes.
You shouldn't be allowed to vote. If any of these things apply to you.
Is that what he said?
Well, he says if any of these things apply, then you would get automatic registration under HR-1.
Yeah, and to him that's bad. It's
Yes.
like, we don't want just anybody. So what? Any citizen who has any kind of government service who we can identify as being an eligible voter, they get to vote now? It's like, yeah, what the fuck? Like, see, and that's what's so funny about this, because now they get to position themselves in a way that's like, people who oppose HR-1, they must oppose it because they are anti-democratic, like the fucking Republicans who oppose it because they don't want more people to vote.
Yeah.
But really, there are very legitimate reasons to fucking oppose it, because it's actually anti-democratic in a lot of ways, because it doesn't allow for third parties to actually have a fucking chance at all. So
we're dealing with two definitions of democracy, and that's where a lot of people are fucking up. We've got the real democracy, which is the good parts of this bill are trying to do, and the bad parts are trying to stop, right? And that's why this is so dramatic and confusing, and why I'm kind of afraid. Because I'm seeing good people push this bill, and I think it's because they're not aware. Because the thing's huge. You can't read the whole damn thing unless someone has summarized it or told you a part that's in it, right?
Yeah. That is the scary part. A lot of people with good intentions are pushing this bill because they do care about more people being able to vote. They want to remove those barriers to voting. Obviously, it would be a fucking fantastic thing if felons could vote.
Yes.
100% I think felons should vote.
Yes.
But should we...
but it's not at the cost of it just being Republican or Democrat. But that doesn't get us anywhere.
It's so shitty.
Republican John Kavanaugh told CNN, Democrats value as many people as possible voting, and they're willing to risk fraud. Republicans are more concerned about fraud, so we don't mind putting security measures in that won't let everybody vote. But everybody shouldn't be voting.
And
direct quote.
Yeah. And just remember, everyone, fraud is anyone voting that disagrees with me or I just don't like.
Yep, that's it. So a great time to talk again about how in Texas, the Attorney General Ken Paxton, his office spent 22,000 hours looking for voter fraud and uncovered just 16 cases of false addresses on registration forms, according to the Houston Chronicle. And keep in mind, nearly 17 million voters are registered in Texas.
And that was after the general election when, with Trump trying to fucking challenge the election results and all these Republicans being like, well, let's examine the fraud. Yeah, they found 16 cases.
Of just false addresses. So that just means that people didn't update their address. That doesn't mean voter fraud. That means that they just didn't fix the form before they voted once.
Yeah, that's fucking insane.
17 million voters registered in Texas. 16 of them fucked up the address. And that's it. And that was after all this money spent on their office looking for this.
I thought 100 million dead people voted.
Okay, well, relative. As President Donald Trump claimed, the election was stolen from him in early November. Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick went so far as to offer $1 million rewards for tips leading to voter fraud convictions anywhere in this country.
And no one got it.
Man, Dan Patrick holding it down.
But anyways, yeah, these Republicans are opposing it for exactly the wrong reasons, and that's why these people can act all fucking sanctimonious about it and pretend that the people who are opposing it for the right reasons are just like the Republicans.
Yep, and this is the same mind game that we've seen and we'll always see, you guys. They want us to fight each other, Republican versus Democrat, so that you don't realize that they're the same damn person.
Yep. So,
well, this is very related to another bill we're going to talk about briefly.
So yeah, a favorite pastime of Texas legislators, especially the Republicans here in Texas, is to make sure that less and less people are able to vote. Anytime they get the chance, they want to make sure it's harder and more difficult to vote, which mainly impacts communities of color in Texas. These super shitty and repressive tactics are the subject of two different bills, one in the House and one in the Senate, that are being pushed through by Texas Republicans. And now they're trying to do some weird shit where they're like combining them, like trying to take the language from House Bill 6 and like put it in Senate Bill 7 and try to get that through.
Yeah, definitely a favorite pastime. The bill that we're about to discuss, Senate Bill 7, is being pushed by Governor Greg Abbott, whom classified it as an emergency item for the 2021 legislative session. So as if we've got no other worries here in the state of Texas, cough, winter freeze, cough, people still without power and plumbing, cough. This is an emergency item for this session. So this is the Texas election bill targeted at Harris County and other places who tried to enact some good voter reform in 2020. Mostly it was COVID related, but it helped a lot of people, I think, get to the polls. Not all of it was good, but some of it was a big improvement. So they're trying to reverse some of that, these Republicans here in Texas. This bill would ban 24-hour voting or any expansion of voting hours beyond 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. This would require a doctor's note for curbside voting, effectively banning drive-through voting.
A doctor's note?
So I'm going to give Harris County voting official a doctor's note, so I'm allowed to vote in my car. Okay. Mind you, guys, COVID's still out there. Okay, it's not like it's over. So let's keep that in mind.
There are plenty of perfectly good reasons to be able to vote from your car. One being that you should never have to stand in a line for several hours to fucking exercise your right to vote.
That is not easy for all constituents. It's really not.
Absolutely not.
And it's hot in Texas, y'all. Okay, so this bill would also bar the mass mailing of vote-by-mail applications, which we know is a favorite subject of theirs. Abbott was saying this bill was needed to prevent fraud, although when pressed, he said he was not aware of any fraud that actually occurred in Texas during the 2020 election. Yet you can still see him also criticizing Harris County's voting processes. So again, just completely unfounded. An investigation by the Houston Chronicle in December found that Texas Attorney General's office, we just talked about this. They had closed just 16 prosecutions for voter fraud in 2020, down from 32, a whole 32 in 2018, despite spending nearly twice as much time investigating and prosecuting such cases as they did 2 years ago. Okay, so this is good. State Rep Briscoe Cain, the Deer Park Republican and chairman of House Elections Committee, said, "We must, of course, snuff fraud out. The idea that voter fraud is a myth has been disproven time and time again, but that's not true, according to the Brennan Center for Justice, which is a nonpartisan policy group. In its research, the center found that most allegations of fraud turn out to be baseless and that most of the few remaining allegations reveal irregularities and other forms of election misconduct. And a voting integrity commission formed by President Donald Trump in 2018 also found no evidence of widespread voter fraud, according to the Associated Press.
Yeah, actually, Kane himself had volunteered with the Trump campaign in Pennsylvania as it unsuccessfully attempted to overturn the outcome of the election and toss that state's votes. So... yeah.
So Senate Bill 7 and related legislation is a poll tax disguised as election integrity, Judge Hidalgo said. It's clearly a direct response to the massive success we had in Harris County last year in terms of accessible and secure elections. She also said the bill was being pushed by Republicans to suppress Democratic votes, but argued it would end up suppressing votes by members of both parties. She also accused Abbott and his Republican colleagues of trying to change the subject from their handling of the COVID pandemic and the February winter storm. I think that some of these folks are scared that voters are going to vote based on their performance, and so they're trying to win by simply keeping people from voting, she said.
Wow, yeah, no, and this
ding, ding.
This Briscoe Kane motherfucker is like the worst. Like he's responsible for House Bill 6. So that was him talking about Senate Bill 7. Yeah. And then now, so when Senate Bill 7 is supposed to be voted on, now he's trying to turn the language of Senate Bill 7 mainly to reflect House Bill 6 and add a bunch of shit from that also. And House Bill 6, among other things, would set up new rules for people assisting voters, like those with disabilities or those who speak languages other than English, in casting their ballots. So basically making it harder for those people to vote. Voters can select anyone to help them through the voting process as long as they're not an employer or a union leader. They put that in there.
What?
Yeah. Yeah. But the bill would require those helping voters to disclose the reason they need help.
Are they saying that you have to tell someone why you need help voting?
Yes. And I guess it needs to be an approved reason.
Are we talking about like physically need help? Or are we talking about like I'm so confused. So let's say you are blind and you need a Braille ballot? Is that where we're going? I'm so confused. What is this?
You would have to prove to them that you're blind
with a doctor's note.
Before you get it. Yeah, you get the doctor's note. Yeah.
Okay. How are people still voting for Republicans? I'm so at a loss.
It says, So House Bill 6, like, Senate Bill 7, is another part of a broader Republican effort this year to enact these wide-ranging changes to elections in Texas that would ratchet up the state's already restrictive rules in the name of election integrity, despite obviously no real fucking evidence of widespread fraud. The legislation was approved by the House Elections Committee on a party line vote with only Republicans voting in favor of it. But now they're trying to ram it through, like some of the provisions in this House bill, into the Senate bill and just trying to get that all through at once. So yeah, like Senate Bill 7, the language and the proposals within this House Bill 6, they target Harris County's initiatives, like you're saying, from the 2020 general election. So what they did during the general election to make it easier for people to vote, they're trying to get rid of all of that, including especially a shift to proactively send out vote-by-mail applications. They definitely want to get rid of that. They do not want people being sent vote-by-mail applications if they don't go through some, fucking like
wacky ass process, which we had friends go through the process because they were away at university and they're trying to vote in their home state and they couldn't. They made it so difficult at every turn that they could not vote. Yeah,
that's what they usually do is they make it so hard to vote by mail that a lot of people end up not even doing it. And Trump was doing that a lot too during the general. He was like, all these people, they're getting ballots just sent to their house, like in the mail. They get a ballot, for the dog, get a ballot for their kid, and basically they're like. He's like, they're sending all these ballots to people's homes, and they didn't even ask for them.
They didn't even ask.
They didn't. How do we even know they want to vote? It's like,
you should be encouraging all of your citizens to vote.
And also just them being sent a ballot doesn't even mean they will vote, but it gives them the option, which everyone, if you fucking are a citizen and have a fucking address, you should be sent a ballot. So if you don't have time to go to the polls, which a lot of people don't because They have to fucking work.
You don't get off work to go
A lot
vote.
of people have to fucking work. And for some people, maybe voting by mail is a way they don't have to take off work to try to go vote.
We do other things. We pay bills by mail. We send applications by mail.
Yeah.
Even state business you can do by mail. And I don't understand why this is any different.
Yeah.
Why are they not concerned that like someone's applying for a driver's license by mail and they shouldn't be? It's bullshit. That the no curbside voting and not voting before 7 a.m. or after 7 p.m. is ridiculous. There's no reason whatsoever why that would be a problem.
Yeah.
They're assuming you don't have kids to get to school.
No,
they're assuming you don't have work past 7 p.m.
No, they're assuming you do have all of those things and then it'll keep you from voting. And that's what they want. Because, this targets people that I guess that they're believing might ultimately vote Democrat more, which is like people who probably have a harder time trying to find time to vote or, trying to find a poll to go to or like someone to take them or like, and especially for communities of color, which have just less access to, they have.
Well, yeah, they purposely don't put like voting places in communities with a lot of people or communities of color or communities where we need it. Like
there's communities of color, especially here in Houston that we know of, have a lot less polling locations. They're harder to get to.
The hours are different.
They will switch the times on people. Yeah.
They don't open them when they're supposed to. They close them early.
And, that's already something that people are contending with. And then now on top of that, all these new restrictions, all these new ways that we can keep people from voting. And
also the things that they enacted that they're trying to take away right away. So that's already going to create confusion when someone goes to vote and they're like, well, I just did this last time. Like, well, now that's not okay.
Yeah. And this is a quote from, I don't know who this is, Gary Bledsoe. I don't know.
That sounds familiar.
Here's a quote from the president of the Texas NAACP. You can't any longer help an elderly constituent by providing them with a mail-in ballot application. This is truly incredible. There's only one reason to create criminal laws, and that is to dissuade minority voters and minority voting officials.
So this is going to be criminal offense for like voting officials that try to do these things. Is that what they mean by criminal? Because they can't like charge people.
No, that they are. They're trying to make, and I saw that it was also like they're adding criminal liability to anybody who interferes with a poll watcher. And it even said in there, it said partisan poll watchers. So people like from parties who are like volunteering to go watch people vote to make sure, like, remember we had an issue with this before. It's like during the general, there's all these Trump people who like wanted to be poll watching,
intimidate people in line,
basically intimidating. Yeah.
Okay, this is absolutely fascist.
And now there's criminal liability for people interfering with those people. So for election officials that are interfering with these poll watchers, now that's criminal.
I mean, this is something like this is a subject that gets pushed back and forth like every session, right? Like voting access is something that's always going to be something that we contend with as long as we've got the two-party system, right?
Yeah.
Like they always fight on, like this is like a tug of war constantly.
The Republicans were actually like kind of like differing on what exact language they wanted in there, because now they're like talking about combining them or replacing Senate Bill 7 with House Bill 6, and there's some different things in each one, but they're equally shitty. And they're I guess discussing like what parts of each one they want in the ultimate version, but no matter what that turns out to be, it's gonna be fucking bad.
And I just want to reiterate how at the beginning of this episode we were talking about HR-1 from the federal government saying, voter choice, voter access, all of this we need to fortify for our democracy, right? That makes no sense. All of this will enable us to fortify our democracy. And then you've got good old Texas just being like, nah, fuck that. Let's make it even harder for people to vote. Now, keep in mind, HR-1 was lying. They say they wanted to fortify democracy and make it easier for people to vote. And some of those things were good.
They are
some of those things do directly contradict what Texas is trying to do. Now, we also talked about how they were actually just trying to shut out like other parties
Well, they are making it easier to vote for
only those
Democrats
two
or
choices.
Republicans. Yeah.
Right.
They're making it easier to vote for the two parties that have been pre-approved for you to vote for.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that just speaks to how partisan this really is. Like, and this is the perfect example. Democrats federally right now, there's a majority. They are trying to do what they always do. And hey, look, we're going to say we care about this, but we actually don't. It's actually really bad. And Texas, Republican as it is being like, nah, fuck you, fuck all of you, absolutely forever.
Well, again, the Republicans are like, you know what? If less people vote, more people vote Republican, because the people who come out and vote no matter what, who have the time and the means to do it,
The resources
in Texas,
to do
they
it.
will be Republican. And the Democrats, no, you know what? No, I believe they earnestly do care about what they see as protecting democracy, which means protecting your right to vote for us, which is basically in their mind. I think that is what.
I think that's a hot take, whether Democrats as a whole actually do care about democracy. But I see what you're saying about
their idea of democracy, which is vote for us. Their democracy is either Republicans or Democrats. You can vote for a Republican or Democrat.
Okay.
And I mean, like that's. They're making it easier to vote. They're trying to let more people into the process, but also make sure that process only includes two options, which are not very different and are not actually meeting the needs of constituents. So either way, yeah.
Oh man, Democrats and Republicans.
I mean, the way I feel is that, like, if Democrats want to make it to where we can only vote for Democrats or Republicans, then
they should be
go
happy.
ahead. Then go ahead. Don't let any of us vote.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It literally doesn't matter. Either one of those parties, whoever you are, if you're listening, if you vote one of those, you're voting for the other all the same. It doesn't matter. They're the same damn thing.